That to Andro 400. One thing that Andro 400 said on the radio ad is it attacked belly fat. Well, let me tell you, it did. The second month is where I saw a drastic change in the size of my
So we
stomach.
got Jimmy's going to come on at 10:15.
This product really does work.
So guys,
Wesley Fritz
if you'd
at
like to
10:30.
experience similar results, then get Andro
So I thought what
400.
we'd do,
The safe,
initially, I'll just
natural,
kind of
and
introduce,
inexpensive way to boost your testosterone. Go to Andro400.com or call
and we'll get Jimmy to kind of go over the nifty 50, but I want to get your thoughts on some of these maybe kids that haven't
Whether you're
signed
making
yet.
updates to existing properties or
targets might
building new
be,
construction,
if
Lowe's
there's
has
anybody
savings
that's,
for pros. Now through
I don't know,
February
up in the air
7th,
or
get
something.
25% off all
I'll
in-stock
get
kitchen
Jimmy, obviously,
cabinets.
talk about,
Plus, save 5% on
Pat
every
Surtain
purchase
kid.
every day
sounds like
when
he's
you
the
use
top
your Lowe's Business
LSU
Credit
target out
account.
there, right?
And don't forget, you can save yourself some time
Yeah,
by ordering
sure.
online at lowesforpros.com and pick up your order at
we'll
our
spend
Pro
the-
Desk.
so
Offer
after we
subject
get
to
Fritz
credit
off at
approval. Can't be
10:45,
combined with other
maybe
credit
take calls
offers.
if there's
Exclusions
calls
apply.
we get.
U.S. only.
And then the second hour is going to
You
be kind
count
of wide
on your
open.
air
We've got
conditioning to work
Larry
perfectly
checking in from the Pro
and to
Bowl
make your family
at
comfortable.
11:30.
So if you
Josh
don't have
checking
a
in from the
problem,
Senior Bowl
you
at
want someone who will
11:45.
be there to help
So
you
the
right
first half
away.
hour of the second
At
hour
Burkhardt
will be
Air
kind of
Conditioning
me
and
you just
Heating,
riffing.
that's the commitment we've
We can
made
talk
to our
recruiting
customers
then,
for over
too.
25 years.
Whatever.
Our
See if we
NATE
get some
certified
calls.
technicians provide emergency service for any type and any brand of cooling system.
I don't
if
know
you need
Wesley
help
Fritz.
anytime, call
Is
us.
he the
We
recruiting
promise to get
coordinator,
you
I
up and running
guess?
again
Yeah,
quickly
good dude.
and professionally. And if
good.
you're thinking
Looks
about an
young.
upgrade right now, we'll help you save with quality cooling equipment from Amana.
I mean,
These
like,
systems come
I
with
guess it makes
incredible
sense 'cause
warranties. And we have 5 years
Fritz
interest-free
isn't that old,
financing
he's got a
available now.
daughter.
Plus, our
About the
Amana
same
brand
age, but
HVAC
sure.
systems are highly efficient. With Burkhardt's 25% energy
work with us
reduction
on that
guarantee,
stuff?
you'll
Does he work
continue
with us?
saving on utility bills for years to come. Whether it's an emergency repair or a brand new cooling system, we're here to help when you need us. Trust Burkhardt Air Conditioning and Heating. Visit acpromise.com.
You wanted to be a teacher when you were little, but you grew up and things changed. Well, it's time to put it back on your list. Innovative things are happening in teaching today, and you can be a part of it.
Make more. Teach. Visit teach.org. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Right. I'd love to play there.
Ed Sheeran is arguably one of the top songwriters in the current crop of writers penning tracks for themselves and other artists. But in a new documentary on rock and roll,
All right, 1 minute.
John,
All right, thanks, bub.
Sheeran confesses his jealousy over one of John's signature songs. In a clip from
Right.
Elton John, the nation's favorite song, which premieres on Reels, Sheeran calls
And Ted
John's
Gorman is
"Can You
kinda
Feel the
outdated,
Love
you know?
Tonight" from Disney's The
Gorman was
Lion
kinda
King
outdated.
a gem. Sheeran confesses that's one thing I'm eternally jealous of Elton. Justin Timberlake is out promoting the release of his upcoming album Man of the Woods and current single Filthy. But the 36-year-old pop star and actor is also promoting the idea of having more babies with his wife Jessica Biel. In a recent interview, Timberlake said
Yeah, I'd want to have more babies with Jessica Biel.
Yeah.
the couple
Duh.
will be 3 years old this April.
I was gonna let that
Man
go,
of the Woods
but
comes
I
out.
figured.
No.
Not Dave.
I was gonna
Can't let
that.
that go.
Camila Cabello's Havana, featuring Young Thug, is #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart. The former Fifth Harmony member earned her first chart topper on the survey, and the same week that her debut solo album, Camila, debuted atop the Billboard 200 album sales chart. Ed Sheeran's Perfect, Post Malone's Rockstar, Bruno Mars's Finished Remix, and Halsey's Bad at Love round out this week's top 5. That's entertainment. Lisa G.
Showtime.
Bring it. Duncan Holder, back at you on Wednesday, January 24th, 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. And once again, we are flying without my cohort, Larry Holder, who is still sick, but he's no longer bedridden sick. He is down in Orlando, Florida at the Pro Bowl and is going to check in with us during the second hour. So pinch hitting for Larry, our own Amos Morale Jr., And Amos, appreciate you sitting in.
No, my dad's not here.
I thought you were the junior.
I'm the third.
Oh, you're the third. That's right. Amos Morale the third. What's that like, by the way, being a third? Is that cool, or is it? Would you want the distinguishedness of being your own?
It's got a Roman numeral at the end. I think that's pretty distinguished.
Willie Snead the fourth. Is that right?
Yeah, he's got the IV. I just got 3 eyes.
So are you going to go
Capitalize
with?
him.
Are you going to continue the trend when you have a little one?
That's the plan. Amos Burrell the fourth, and then his inheritance will be based on him naming his Amos Burrell the fifth. We're gonna keep this going as long as possible. I
like it. I like tradition like that. I have a good friend that I graduated high school with that was, I think, even further down the line than the third. But let's go over the plan real quick today. Because we got an action-packed show. I think people are really going to be involved in this one. The first hour, and we're going to lean heavily on you, Amos, your expertise on this. First hour is going to be all recruiting. Like I said, the National Signing Day, which is the real signing day, the traditional signing day, is February 7th, 2 weeks from today. And we want to kind of get into the nitty-gritty on recruiting, who's left, what the classes look like at the local schools, Tulane and LSU, and also what top targets might be available, what targets might be waffling if there are any, kind of get into all the details of that. We're going to have Jimmy Smith, our recruiting coordinator here at NOLA.com, our recruiting analyst, I should say, at 10:15. Right off the bat, Jimmy's going to break down the local landscape for us. And then at 10:30, we're very pleased to have Wesley Fritz, who's the director of player personnel at Tulane University, to kind of go over their class that's already in the books, and then maybe just some also comments on maybe what the landscape is for them going forward. He can't get into, obviously, names of unsigned players, but he can certainly talk about what their strategy is going to be coming up at the new National Signing Day. Then the second hour will be wide open. We'll talk about a lot of things. We're going to get a visit from Larry Holder, who is down, like I said, in Orlando at the Pro Bowl, where 6 Saints players are participating and the entire Saints coaching staff is involved, and also Drew Brees' kids are the ball boys. I don't know if Larry will get a one-on-one with Balin. We'll ask him. At 11:45, Josh Katzenstein is going to check in from Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl and kind of give us an update. He's meeting along with a lot of other local reporters with Saints general manager Mickey Loomis this morning. So we'll get the update from Josh Katzenstein on what Mickey had to say, and also what prospects have stood out to him early on. There's a lot of focus over there on the quarterbacks, Josh Allen in particular, and also Baker Mayfield, right?
Oh, yeah, he showed up.
Right, he finally got there a day late. I think he had some personal issues with his family. But a lot of focus on those guys because they play in certain college systems that might not be compatible to the NFL. So scouts want to see them under center, operating out of a traditional NFL pro set, as opposed to the shotgun pistol formations that we see a lot of times, especially with Baker Mayfield. So, like I said, action-packed show. We want to get your involvement. If you want to call in, have any questions, 504-260-1280 is the number, and you can speak to our great producer, Dave DeCorbier, who is manning the central control over at iHeart for us, as always, in total control on Wobble Wobble Wednesday. I guess it is, Dave, it's Wobble Wobble Wednesday still, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just making sure. Even though there's no Will Guillory, I guess we didn't name the whole show after Will.
I forgot to do Torture Tuesday yesterday.
Oh, that's true. We never got to. Our themes have fallen apart now at the Saints season. We're all still in shock that the Saints lost in that game.
Torture Tuesday?
Yes. And it is torturous, trust me.
It's Alternative Tuesdays is the legitimate name.
Is this Throwback Thursday and then Country Fried Friday? I think that's kind of how our theme.
See, those make sense, but Torture Tuesday, that just sounds like, why would you come to work that day? That's a perfect day to call in sick now, it sounds like.
I've been educated on Torture Tuesday, and I'm kind of getting on board. We had to get Larry on board on Country Fried Friday, and I am getting on board on Torture Tuesday. I'm starting to learn a little more about the alternative rock.
Alternative rock, 90s grunge, it's good stuff.
A lot of Creed happening on Torture Tuesday.
Maybe not a lot of Creed, but we might.
And look, we're going to hit all the high notes today on recruiting. So if you're a Tulane fan, if you're an LSU fan, you got a question for us, please don't hesitate to call in. We'll also talk a little Pelicans. We'll talk some college basketball in the second hour. LSU got a nice win last night, kind of got off the schneid, beating Texas A&M at the PMAC, and that was a good win for Will Wade's crew. And I'm not sure what's going on with Texas A&M. At one time, they were 11th in the country, I think, maybe even higher, and they're in last in the SEC right now. So that the wheels have kind of fallen off for Billy Kennedy.
Well, sometimes it's just the schedule. You get some guys that you match up well with. You look at UNO, for instance, they started the season off with a really tough slate, played all those teams super close, and, you know, these last couple weeks, it finally catches up to you, you know, those growing pains, some of those hard games. So you've seen with UNO, they've had a few tough matchups these last few weeks against some guys in their conference that I think they were expected to go in there and cruise. So, you know, it's just you start hitting that stretch of the season where, you know, especially with a lot of young guys. So there's a lot of things. That's part of the crazy thing about college basketball is that on any given night, somebody could jump up and beat you.
Don't you think Coach Schless probably did that by design, too, to kind of toughen his team?
Absolutely, and especially when he's got, 9 new scholarship players, counting the transfers and the guys that are eligible this year. So he wanted to get them some baptize them by fire and, you know, really force them to kind of, you know, get some tough ones because really their way to the tournament, again, is winning that conference and winning that conference tournament. So I think he wanted to make sure they were ready and used to playing in big games against tough competition.
And they're in the mix. I mean, they're right up near the lead. They're not in the lead. I think Nichols might be 6-1 in the Southland, but nevertheless, UNO is going to be a factor. We know that. And some news breaking this morning, the NFL released a statement, kind of a report on their protocol, a concussion protocol investigation. We put a post up on NOLA.com about it. Basically, they said they investigated how the protocol for Cam Newton, the concussion protocol procedure, was executed. And we all remember, all Saints fans remember that game against the Saints in the Superdome on January 7th when Cam Newton went to a knee after a sack and then came back into the game. According to concussion protocol, he should at least had to go to the locker room. He did not go to the locker room. They conducted an investigation and, surprise, surprise, said that there was no violation of the concussion protocol. Here's the exact statement. They said Newton was properly evaluated for a concussion in the sideline medical tent and did not sustain a concussion. Then they went into this line-by-line item of all the details that I'm not going to bore anybody with. But it shouldn't surprise anybody that they said concussion protocol was followed.
Well, and then, I mean, the Panthers came up with a pretty good story pretty quickly after that when Cam said that it wasn't my head, it was my eye. That's why I looked so confused and couldn't see and was all, you know, disoriented because my eye was – and I'm just
That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, and, you know, the whole – you even go listen to – if you go back and find Rivera's transcript, it was his eye. It was his eye. It was his eye.
And you know what? I think other teams will follow that kind of similar strategy in the future, especially with a key player like Cam Newton. Mm-hmm. They don't want to lose a player like that. You know, and I would say this, talking to Thomas Morstead, if you remember when he made that tackle against the Vikings, when he went to the ground pretty hard, hurt his ribs, he said the first thing he thought of when he got up was, I know I didn't hit my head, but I need to pop right up because I don't want them to think I've got a concussion and take me out of the game. He didn't want to hurt his team, but he was immediately thinking of that is I don't want them to draw me over to the sidelines and start doing the finger test and all that. So he got up quickly, even though he was hurting and wanted to stay down. He got up immediately because he didn't want to go through the concussion protocol. That's where we're at now.
Well, it was even the same thing. You remember that first Falcons game when Alvin Kamara goes down, comes up, and he stumbles a little bit. He said he gets to the sideline, and he's just kind of trying to mind his business, but they came up to him, and he said when he got in the locker room and he saw the video, that was when he was like, oh, well, then shoot. There was no way I was getting away with that because he stumbled as he was getting up and running off the field.
Right.
So it's one of those things where I think the guys are aware that, like, if I could just keep it together long enough so I can go back in. I don't know if you remember, I think it was last season. It was a Monday night game for the Texans. Brian Hoyer was able to –
I don't remember that.
He got concussed and went in and played, I want to say, 2 series. And then they eventually took him out because he was not getting the play calls right because he was so disoriented. So they took him out and, you know, they asked him about it later. And he's like, well, I didn't remember what happened on those series because he'd taken a shot.
Right.
But he was able to get up and look like he was there enough. So it's one of those things where I think they need to do – the league has to do a little bit better job of making sure that these teams follow that protocol.
Well, the problem I've got with the whole thing isn't necessarily the protocol. I think the whole point of this is should be protecting the players. Mm-hmm. As long as the player is being protected, that's the end game here. We're trying to protect the players from themselves and for their future safety. I think what's going on with Saints fans is they just wanted Cam Newton out of the game. So they didn't care whether he was hurt or not. They just wanted him out of the game, and that's where I've got a problem with it. If they checked him and he was fine and he could go back in, he didn't have concussion, that's all that matters here. Forget this procedural protocol stuff that trying to legislate out a key player so you can win a game. The end game here is Cam Newton okay? Let him back in the game, and that's really what I think was administered here and what they at least concluded in whatever went on in that medical tent. So, all right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We'll get Jimmy Smith on the phone. We'll start talking recruiting, talk LSU recruiting, Tulane recruiting, and also what unsigned targets are out there because we're 2 weeks away from signing day, so it's going to get nitty-gritty here soon for a lot of the local programs and a lot of the local prospects. And when we come back, we'll get Jimmy Smith on the line. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, iHeartRadio app. We are Dunc and Holder.
Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword cash to 200-200. You'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. That's cash to 200-200.
Josh Innes is moving to mornings.
I am.
We've ordered some extra strong coffee and took away his Bailey's Irish cream. Josh Innes, morning 6 to 10.
You get the point on Sports 1280.
New Orleans.
If you need a payday loan fast, try LendUp.com. Apply in minutes on your phone or computer, and you could have cash in your account fast. LendUp.com, the better payday loan. LendUp.com, subject to availability in your state. LendUp is a licensed credit services organization, not a direct lender, in Ohio and Texas.
Get to JCPenney for the best winter deals around. Come in now to get the things you want and need from an unbeatable selection of the brands you love. Beat the cold weather with 50 to 80% off clearance items like apparel for the family and items to refresh your home. Plus, download the JCPenney app today and never miss a deal. Find what you need for the prices you love anytime you want. Hurry in. 50 to 80% off clearance and soon. JCPenney.
That must be a good player.
No, Justin is probably
immediate markdown. Some exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
I'm Johnny Weir.
And I'm Tara Lipinski.
Entenmann's is celebrating their 120th birthday in a big way with their I Sing on the Cake sweepstakes. Go to Entenmann's120birthday.com to enter for a chance to win some really great prizes.
Now, if you sing happy birthday to Entenmann's
well, they
using
also
the
had two other
hashtags
guys.
Entenmann's
All right, we got Jimmy in about a minute and a half.
All right, thanks, Dave.
for the prizes.
Yep.
And Entenmann's will make a donation to the Give the Note Foundation to support music education in schools.
120 years.
Who doesn't love Entenmann's?
Happy birthday to you.
The 4 for $4 from Wendy's has a lot of fans because it's a deal that gives you a sandwich plus 4 nuggets, a small fry, and drink, all for just $4. But now the 4 for $4 has more variety than ever with 8 sandwich choices.
I'm loyal to the double stack.
I'm Junior Bacon Cheeseburger through and through.
I pledge myself to the crispy chicken sandwich.
I'm loyal to my hunger.
Whether you're loyal to one sandwich or all 8, the Wendy's 4 for $4 has a sandwich for you. So try them all and pick your favorite. Now that's deliciously different.
Participating Wendy's for a limited time. Offer not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.
Jim, would you sponsor my son in the fun run?
Sure, here's $1.
Jim, I know a senior manager with your experience makes between 100 and 132K.
Here's 5.
Thanks. Hey, Sue, the director with a median salary of $95,000. Got a sec?
How we find jobs has changed. On Indeed.com, our company reviews give you the inside track on thousands of companies. You can research salaries, benefits, company cultures, and more. Search for greatness. Search Indeed, the world's #1 job site. Indeed is the world's #1 job site according to ComScore total visits.
You wanted to be a teacher when you were little, but you grew up and things changed. Well, it's time to put it back on your list. Innovative things are happening in teaching today, and you can be...
All right, coming back.
More. Teach. Visit teach.org. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Amos Morale, visiting with our recruiting coordinator here at NOLA.com. I call him coordinator. I guess he's an analyst, but maybe coordinates the coverage, right?
It's a slightly more accurate description than I think he would like.
Jimmy Smith checking in with us. Jimmy, how you feeling? I know you've been under the weather, and you're like many people in New Orleans, right, trying to just get through this bug that's been going around?
Yeah, I think there's more unhealthy people than healthy people walking around this area right now, and I happen to be one of them. So, but I think I'm turning the corner a bit. So I'm excited about the future, Jeff.
It's good to hear. It's good. Well, you sound better than just a couple of days ago, so maybe you are turning the corner. All right, look, I went through your Nifty 50, the updated Nifty 50 on NOLA.com, and I'm curious, how would you, if you just had to take a big picture look, you've done this thing now for a number of years, how is this class in Louisiana compared to past classes or future classes? Where would you say it, how would you characterize it?
I would probably say average, maybe slightly above average. There are a lot of good players. The problem is a lot of those guys are skill players, and football is one in the trenches. It wasn't a very strong year for the trenches in the state of Louisiana. You only had one signal caller that was really, a Power 5 caliber guy. So I think overall it was a pretty good class. There's some solid depth, through the mid-major type programs and stuff, but it certainly wasn't an elite class, and it's probably just slightly above average.
And of your Nifty 50, it looked to me like the majority of players have already signed. So could we kind of go over maybe some of the guys that are on the list that are still up in the air, that still might have some recruiting to go here before the next 2 weeks before they sign and maybe I'm committed? Is there anybody that's going to be hot and heavy and an interesting recruitment coming up?
Yeah, I think one that's really kind of taken off, and with this early signing period, it's gonna affect and benefit kids in different ways. And I think one guy that's really benefited from not signing early is Eddie Smith, a cornerback out of Salmon High School. I think he's number 10 on that list, if I'm not mistaken. Eddie sat with an in-home visit with Nick Saban last night, a school that hadn't even reached out prior to about 2 weeks ago. He's received a lot of attention from Tennessee of late, Mississippi State. So his recruitment's kind of picked up a bit, and it's going to be interesting to follow. The Alabama offer, it's kind of hard to pin down exactly what they're thinking there. I know Eddie could play. I think he is an Alabama-type talent. He's a little bit raw in his development, but they've got good coaching over there. I almost feel like Alabama is setting him up in case they were to miss on some guys like Patrick Surtain and some of these elite prospects that they're recruiting. So that's a really intriguing recruitment for me to follow. I think Eddie's a superb player. I'm pretty sure I have him ranked higher than any of the other services, and it's just because I've been able to see him so many times and see him develop over the last year or so and the strides he's made. But that's a very intriguing recruitment as it currently stands.
When we talk about Eddie, this is a kid that's coming off a really good senior season where he played receiver, punted, kicked field goals. He did everything for that Salmon team. So he's definitely a savvy player. Just who are some of the other guys, Jimmy, that you think are their phones are blowing up right now?
Yeah, I think the duo from West Feliciana, Darius Davis and Derek Turner. Two stepbrothers that are very close. Darius was committed to TCU for quite some time. A lot of people expected him to sign early, as did I. They're two of the more intriguing prospects still left on the board, and you see a lot of schools coming in for both of them. A lot of the local schools really pushing hard for a lot of them. Louisiana Tech, Tulane, trying to get in the mix to see if they might be able to sneak one, if not both of them out. I think Derek Turner's set up for an official visit to Missouri this weekend. That's an interesting school to watch, being that they've had some success recruiting Louisiana players of late. So those two guys right there are two of the most dynamic players in the state, and certainly two of the best on the board. And they're both very versatile, could go in and play multiple positions, which adds to their value even more. So when they're slim pickings, guys like that are really benefiting from this early signing period, but it's a roll of the dice because for some kids, they might not sign early and might lose scholarships. So, but it certainly seems to be working out for those two at West Feliciana.
You talking about those two, you didn't mention their best attributes.
Speed?
Yeah. Those kids can fly.
They are two. They can fly. They can flat out fly. In fact, Ryan Clark, I was talking to Ryan Clark after U-High. His son plays in U-High, and they played West Feliciana this year, and he called me right after the game and said, I think that's the fastest football player I've ever witnessed. speaking about Darius Davis. And that's something he considered, actually, and I think was one of the reasons he didn't sign early, is there was a period in December where he wasn't sure if he was going to even play football in college because he is such a gifted track athlete.
Yeah, state
and
champion.
The only reason Derek Turner is not state champion is because of his stepbrother, Darius Davis. And most events that Darius won, Derek was number 2 in state last year. So those are two guys that can flat out fly.
All right, Jimmy, obviously a lot of focus on LSU here coming up over the next couple of weeks. They've got the majority of your top 10 already signed, it looks like. Obviously, Jamar Chase still out there. The kid from Parkway that's going to TCU, the quarterback Rogers. What's left for LSU and Coach Orgeron? We know you mentioned Pat Surtain Jr. earlier. I assume he's their number 1 unsigned target. What else do you think? And where do they stand with Surtain, and what else is left for them to accomplish here over the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, they have limited spots and obvious needs. They really need to reload in the secondary a bit. Pat Surtain is, of course, their top corner on the board, a kid that's been leaning to LSU for 3 years, and I had been expecting him to sign with LSU for quite some time. Things have gotten interesting of late. Alabama's making that really hard Crimson Tide push they make on some of these kids, and they hosted him for an official visit this past weekend with his father, who was also pegged for Nick Saban for a possible job. So there's a lot of intriguing developments in that recruitment that kind of have me pulling back a little bit on thinking that he's a lock for LSU. I still think LSU's the leader. A lot of these kids, when they go on those visits, they ride an emotional high, but just like a roller coaster, there's going to be a down cycle. And I think after a couple days of that visit kind of passing, they kind of level off a bit. And I think that's where Surtain's at right now. If I'm not mistaken, I think Corey Raymond and David Aranda might be on a plane as we speak heading to South Florida to meet with him and his family. So, I still think they're the leaders, but they've certainly got to fend off Alabama here. And same could be said for Kelvin Joseph. I've felt the same about him for quite some time. He'll end up at LSU. He's committed to LSU for a long time, decided to reopen his commitment to kind of give other teams a fair look. And really it was because teams didn't want to bring him on an official visit because they thought he was locked into LSU. So he wanted to take some visits, and Alabama's still poking around with him. But I think as long as Corey Raymond's at LSU, I think he's going to get those two guys and really most of the defensive backs he wants. Jamar Chase, the guy you mentioned, phenomenal guy. I think Jamar Chase could be LSU's leading receiver next year if he were to sign with LSU. He's that kind of talent. He's college ready. I think he's all but done with his recruitment. He's canceled his visit to Auburn. They haven't been engaging with many schools in the past couple of weeks, so it seems like he's really trying to end this thing, and National Signing Day can't come quick enough for him. So I think he's the most certain of the three. I think Kelvin Joseph's right behind him. I think he's almost a lock at this point, and Pat Surtain's kind of on the fence. And if they were to miss any one of those guys, things could get interesting on who they might push to later. The other spot up might be Mario Goodrich and James Foster, a cornerback out of Missouri and a quarterback out of Alabama. I don't think they have much of a shot at Foster. He's heading to Texas A&M this weekend. He's been recruited by Jimbo Fisher and staff for quite some time while they were at Florida State. They've continued that at Texas A&M. I think it will be Florida State or Texas A&M for them, kind of paving the way for LSU to take Goodrich if they would like. But they're fighting with Georgia in what seems to be a nip and tuck battle. A lot of sources in Georgia feel they have Goodrich locked up. Sources in Baton Rouge feel like that's not the case. They are the leaders at this point, so that one might be a toss-up. But I think those are about all the names that they are really pressing for. If they were to miss some of those guys and an open spot becomes available, then you might look at John Curtis, tight end Glenn Beal, or something like that slipping into this class to kind of fill that last spot. And they really like Beal, but it's a numbers game. And they have more pressing needs, and that's the only reason they haven't pushed to get that commitment of late. But if any of these kids end up going to another program, I think he's the one that gets the first call.
And, Jimmy, we got Wesley Fritz coming on from Tulane here shortly after the break, and he can't talk, obviously, unsigned prospects. He can talk about who they've already got inked on the dotted line. But what's left for Tulane? What do you think, since I know you know the recruiting landscape for them, what's left for them in state and maybe potentially out of state?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much left in state for them for the needs they have. Biggest need seems to be middle linebacker, and they seem to be poking around. I've heard a kid's name that's can't recall off the top of my head, from St. Thomas Aquinas. They signed one kid from that school this year. They've been pressing him of late. Tight end's another position they'd like to add. I don't know if there's an available tight end in Louisiana, and it's been interesting under Fritz at Tulane because they've done more out-of-state recruiting than perhaps any in-state program has in quite some time. And I don't know if it's as much as them not believing or trusting in in-state players. It's just where their relationships lie. Over time, they've made some moves and kind of built some relationships and have been more effective in recruiting the state of Louisiana. We saw it when they were able to flip Damian Tate from Warren Easton and be able to sign a kid like Dorian Campbell, who really picked up a lot of steam in the fall and had some pretty good offers. And with the hire of J.J. McCleskey, that just kind of shows that they're looking to put maybe more of an emphasis on the state of Louisiana. They were really hoping to add Lindsey Scott to this class. That didn't happen. He's heading to Missouri. And that kind of put them in a bind because their recruitment for Lindsey kind of shut things down for other quarterbacks and even worried some of the quarterbacks on the roster. So that was an interesting situation. Didn't work out for them, kind of backfired in a sense, but they're just going to have to pick up and move forward. They at least have Jonathan Banks returning. They're starting quarterback from last year, so they should be in solid shape there. But they've got a few holes left, and it's going to be out-of-state prospects that they look to fill those needs.
Jimmy Smith, recruiting analyst for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Hey, bud, thanks for giving us a lay of the land here. We got 2 weeks. I know you're going to be busy, so you need to get better. You need to hydrate, get lots of rest. I'm sure you've been told that by everybody around the Smith household.
Yes, I think we're all kind of sick right now. The little one's crying as we speak, and he's getting the sniffles today. So, yeah, it's been a sick house the last 2 weeks.
All right, get well, buddy. Appreciate it, Jimmy. Thanks for the time. We always appreciate it. All right, take care. That's Jimmy Smith. And when we come back, we'll get a hold of Wesley Fritz, the player personnel director at Tulane University, get a lay of the land for the Green Wave right here on Duncan Holder, Sports 1280.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Here we just give him to kind of talk
This report is brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Happy Wednesday from the Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Temperatures will get into the mid to upper 50s this afternoon through filtered sunshine. There could be a very stray shower south of the lake today, but most folks will stay dry. Then overnight, we'll see temperatures falling to near the freezing mark north of the lake and right around the 40-degree mark south of the lake. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
When danger is imminent, will you be prepared? Now, many mobile devices can bring you critical information from local sources you trust with a unique sound and vibration. Wireless emergency alerts keep you in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts.
Statistics show that 80% of Americans will give up on their New Year's resolutions by February. But there's one thing Americans never give up: AM/FM radio. In fact, TV reaches 86% of Americans. Radio commercials just like this one will reach 93% of Americans in every single week of 2018. So if you want to reach more moms, fans, teens, professionals, shoppers, and well, more of pretty much everyone, radio's the way to do it. Make a resolution to go to iHeartMedia.com and put radio to work for your company in 2018.
Progressive presents Get Pumped. Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're going to let your budget be the boss of you? Take control.
Right, 1 minute, and we got Fritz.
But you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find options that fit your budget. Here's some music to get you pumped. I hear your budget laughing at you.
You got me?
Wait, that's just those kids laughing at me.
All right, 30 seconds.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Open calendar. What's my schedule looking like?
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an emergency flash flood between Park and First Street.
What? No, that doesn't work. I'm busy then. Decline. Decline.
Floods don't exactly work around your schedule. Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. It starts with talking to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. So don't wait, communicate. Visit getagameplan.org. Brought to you by the Louisiana Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, FEMA, and the Ad Council.
Whether you ride the wave or like to growl, we're talking your teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Amos Morale here on Duncan Holder. Talking football recruiting. We're 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. It's always a big day for the local football programs and the local prospects that have been recruited here in the local area in New Orleans, around the state. And for the universities, it's the culmination of a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work over months, sometimes years. And welcoming into the program now, Wes Fritz, who's the Director of Player Personnel at Tulane University, who I'm sure can appreciate what I'm talking about, because I'm sure, Wesley, you guys, when do you all start on this recruiting cycle? I mean, I'm sure it goes back even further than a year for this recruiting class.
Yeah, it starts early. This 2018 class, we've been, started contact with these guys, a lot of them right when we got here, initially that first year in 2016. Like right now, kind of to give you a timeline, we're looking at 2019s and 2020 kids. So it starts early. It's a lot of hard work. Our coaches do a great job.
Yeah, and I know you're now in are you in your second year here at Tulane?
This will be my third.
Okay, third year. I'm curious to know, I'm sure you heard a lot about New Orleans, Louisiana football. You've been in some great states, obviously Georgia, Texas, with great fertile recruiting grounds. How would you compare Louisiana and the New Orleans area to those areas, just in general, for talent?
I think it's, a great area. There's always that stat out there, per capita, Louisiana produces some of the most NFL players and Division I caliber players in the country. So, I was around in Georgia, like you said, and it's very comparable to that area. Just some great talent. And, I just saw, Jimmy Smith, he put out that top 50 list. A lot of those guys were from New Orleans. So that kind of tells you, how many guys are around this area. And, we were very fortunate to sign 8 guys from the state of Louisiana this year. So looking to sign even more next year.
And then of those 8 guys, you got a few from New Orleans, but the ones you guys picked up from New Orleans were guys that had very productive high school careers. I'm thinking about Damian Tate and Juan Manjarres from St. Augustine. What did you guys see in those players?
Juan, he's very academic oriented, and, hats off to him. He was the first guy to, jump on board in this class. So he kind of set the tone, and, he was a great recruiter for us going forward. Outstanding kid, outstanding character. And, next, Jamyron James from De La Salle. He's a guy who's going to come in and, help us out next year as well. And Damian Tate, everybody knows about him. A lot of people call him one of the best players in the state. So we were very fortunate to get those guys. They jumped on board early and ended up being great recruiters for us as well too.
And what else did you like? I mean, you all had a kind of got almost all your work done in that early signing period. What else stood out to you, Wes, in that early class? What needs did you all get addressed that you wanted to tackle going into that early signing period?
Like you said, we addressed a lot of our needs, in the early signing period. It was kind of strange because we didn't know how it was going to go. It was the first year doing that, but, I think we made the right move trying to sign all of our guys early. And now we're just, left with a few slots left to fill. So, but I think the position we, did a good job at was defensive line. We signed, and we got 2 of those guys in here early, Devon Wright and Jeffrey Johnson. Jeffrey Johnson's a defensive tackle from Brookhaven, Mississippi, and Devon Wright is a defensive tackle from Donaldsonville. And we were able to get those guys both enrolled early, and they're here working out with us now. And, Jamyron will get him in here this summer, and, added Juan, obviously, like you spoke of. But I think that was a position we did a really good job of filling our needs at.
Also, the secondary, it seems like, we talked about Tate, obviously, but you look at Dorian and Macon Clark out of Destrehan. It seems like you guys did a really good job of finding guys to really boost the depth you have back there.
Yeah, we got on Macon Clark a little later. We had been recruiting him, for a while, but, he was a great pickup. He can play a variety of positions back there in the secondary. And, obviously Dorian, he's got great speed. He's legit 10-7, 100-meter guy, and, 21-second, 200 guy. And, he's got a chance to play a variety of roles back there as well. So he was a great pickup. So.
Well, Coach, tell us about the quarterback position. Everybody always wants to know quarterback. I know you got Jonathan Banks coming back. He's the incumbent. Are you still recruiting quarterbacks? Do you have one addressed in your early signing period? What's that position look like going forward?
Yeah, we're still looking at a couple guys, but we were fortunate to get another kid in here as well, early enrollee, a kid named Christian Daniels from North Carolina, Western Alamance, and he's another guy who's got great speed, sub 11, 100 meters. He's one of the fastest indoor 60-meter time guys in the state of North Carolina, and he's a big kid too. He's about 6'2", 6'3", 205, and he's going to go through spring ball with us. So that's great. And also a kid that we recruited last year. He played a little bit of wide receiver for us, but we're going to move him back to quarterback. A kid named Dane Ledford out of Argyle, Texas. But obviously, we got Jonathan Banks coming back, and I think he has a chance to be one of the best guys in the conference at quarterback. He's becoming a great leader for us, and one of the toughest guys we got on the team. Great competitor. So, but to answer your question, yeah, we're still looking at a couple of slots, a couple of guys out there still.
All right, Coach. I know this season you guys did a really good job of getting a lot of these prospects, the local ones, the in-state guys, to come out and see what you guys had going on and what you guys were building. Just what's gone into you guys building those relationships across Louisiana to where you're, really up in the local talent in your classes?
Well, I think first and foremost, it starts with New Orleans, and we kind of divide up the city and greater New Orleans area between our 9 coaches. So each of them has a handful of schools, and obviously, we try to get positional recruit as well inside the city. So a lot of the coaches, there's some crossover. They get to meet coaches from other guys' schools and all that. So, and also we had a coaching clinic last spring. We had a few dates. We had a lot of New Orleans area coaches come in and just show them what we're offering, and give them an opportunity to see what meet our coaches and form a relationship with them. But New Orleans, we're wanting to start first and foremost with this city, and we're going to have a big junior day coming up soon. A lot of opportunities for guys, to come in, coaches, and see us practice. Our practices are open to all the coaches in this, the city and the state, and just continue to form those relationships.
And now that you've gone through the early signing period, the first time we've had that, did you like it? Was it good for Tulane? Is it good for schools like Tulane, where all the work you put in, maybe getting an under-the-radar prospect, you can get him signed early and not have to worry about getting poached maybe from a larger school? I mean, how did you evaluate it now that you all have gone through it?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with that. It was the thing I noticed that was most different is we didn't have as many schools coming in trying to poach us there at the end. I thought everybody kind of tried to solidify their class and get it nailed down pretty early. So I think there was a lot less poaching, and that's the biggest benefit I saw with us. And it also makes it, a lot easier for this, contact period right now that we're in. We're able to go see 2019, 2020 kids and start forming those relationships right now. Whereas, previous years, we'd start that, in April. But I think that was the biggest benefit to me that I saw personally was just, we had our class locked down, for a while. And I noticed a lot of other schools did too. So there was a lot less poaching and all that. So I think that was the biggest benefit, like you said.
And Wes, how many, numbers-wise, how many will you have? How many scholarships you got left to give? What do you expect to sign in a couple weeks here on signing day? How many numbers, I guess?
Oh, we got a few left. We're looking to sign anywhere from 3 to 4. So our coaches are out and about right now. They're doing a great job. They've been on the go. So we got 3 or 4 spots left, and excited about the pool that we have to fill those spots.
All right. And I know you can't go into specifics, but what have you seen from some of these young guys, just in terms of talent-wise? Do you think you guys got some good prospects on the horizon?
Yeah, I really do. I think it's, like I said, I think it's a great pool we have for those 3 to 4 slots. The pool that we're looking at to fill those, I think it's very quality players. They're bought into, what we're offering here at Tulane, very competitive guys, and they value what Tulane has to offer. So I think that's anytime you have that, you can't go wrong.
All right, that's Wesley Fritz, Director of Player Personnel at Tulane University. The Green Wave had a great early signing class. They're looking to cap it off with, as Coach Fritz said, about 3 or 4 more guys here in 2 weeks. And I know you guys will be busy laying the groundwork for future classes, because it sounds like these 2019 and 2020 classes in the state of Louisiana are going to be gangbusters from what I understand. So, Wesley, thanks for joining the program, and good luck to you all in the next couple of weeks and in the future at Tulane.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. And that's Wesley Fritz of the Tulane Green Wave. And I tell you, Amos, you know better than anybody, but they've turned it around there quickly under Coach Fritz. And if they could have just gotten in that bowl game, I mean, they came so close to getting to a bowl game. But I still think locally the momentum is there. You can see it in their signing classes. They're getting more kids locally to come to Tulane. I think they see what Coach Fritz, the culture change and the perception change of Tulane football, that the needle is pointed in the right direction.
Well, yeah, and you talk about that signing class. One of the guys that we talked about was Dorian Kamel out of Scotlandville. That was a kid that was seeing a lot of SEC interest, and he decided to go with Tulane. They're getting the kids on campus. They're playing well against good teams. They're showing these kids, hey, look, we're building stuff here. There's a spot for you. You can come in and play and make an impact. And I think one of the things, too, that's helping them is that they're able to get that exposure at Tulane that maybe in the past they wouldn't have, just with all these TV networks and everything.
It's a good point.
And then the fact that they're seeing guys like Orleans Darkwood playing for the Giants. Tanzel Smart. You're seeing guys make it to the league out of there. That's helping, some of these guys that maybe holding out for those bigger offers will just say, well, I'll just go to Tulane, get some good tape, and, try to make it to the NFL that way. So I think that there's a lot of things working in their favor, but I think it all starts with the fact that they got guys playing well up there.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Tulane has always put out like good level, NFL level players. They just don't have the numbers. But we see guys, you mentioned Orleans Darkwa and
Matt Forte still
kicking it. I know. And look, what's the receiver's name in Washington? Grant, I think.
Oh yeah, Ryan Grant.
Ryan Grant's doing well, and Perry Nickerson's probably going to be a draft pick this year out of their secondary. And I really like their running back Dontrell Hilliard. I think he will make somebody in the NFL a very good, solid, probably backup running back, but the kind of guy like Orleans Darkwa is, who will have a long NFL career because he could do so many things really well. And he's the perfect kind of Tulane recruiting prospect, a guy that kind of fell through the cracks. They get him in there, and he gets a lot of production and develops. Whereas if he had maybe gone to a bigger school, he might not have gotten that opportunity. He fits in perfectly at Tulane and has been a very, very big part of their early success under Coach Willie Fritz. All right, let's take a break, come back. We'll wrap up the first hour, kind of get Amos's thoughts on the local recruiting scene and who he really likes that maybe might be flying under the radar. And we'll wrap it up in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. You're listening to Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stick with us.
You could put $1,000 in your hand. Cold hard cash in your pocket. $1,000 is up for grabs every hour weekdays from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m.
$1,000
on Sports 1280.
For game-changing innovation, look to the Latrim family of companies located in Harahan. Intralocks, a Latrim company, changed the game when they invented modular plastic conveyor belts over 40 years ago. These belts and innovative Intralocks technology are transforming movement in manufacturing facilities around the world. Intralocks is a dynamic global company now hiring in production, warehousing, shipping, and more. If you want to be part of our successful team, visit Latrim.com. That's LAITRAM.com.
iHeartRadio now makes it even easier to listen to all your favorite podcasts. No need for another app. All the biggest names in podcasting can be found in the iHeartRadio app. Literally thousands of them, like NPR's full lineup of podcasts, including the TED Radio Hour, plus Bill Simmons, How Stuff Works, The New York Times, comedian Mark Maron, Barstool Sports, and more. All available for free. Now your favorite radio app can be your favorite podcast app. Download or open the free iHeartRadio app and tap Podcast to start exploring.
Progressive presents Get pumped. Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're gonna let your budget be the boss of you? Take control with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find options that fit your budget. Here's some music to get you pumped. I hear your budget laughing at you. Oh, wait, that's just those kids laughing at me. Ignore them!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Around the world, there are young people who face a difficult decision: continue their dream of education or drop out to help support their families. In a single moment, you can help them write a new story. See potential, not poverty, at unbound.org.
Cavaliers star LeBron James, the newest member of the NBA's 30,000-point club. King James becomes just the seventh player to do it and the youngest at age 33.
First picked up basketball when I was 5 years old, to first started playing organized basketball when I was 9, all the way up until this point. So I give a lot of thanks to a lot of people.
LeBron needed just 7 points entering last night's game in San Antonio, finishing with 28. The Cavs 114-102 loss to the Spurs. Elsewhere in the association, Lakers nip the Celtics in LA. Knicks fall to the Warriors in the Bay. Kings over the Magic in Florida. Thunder sneak past the visiting Nets. Meanwhile, NBA All-Star reserves are out. The West backups, including Russell Westbrook and Klay Thompson. The East led by John Wall and Kristaps Porzingis. The National Baseball Hall of Fame will reveal its class of 2018 tonight, and Steve Wilkes is now officially in place as the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, leaving just he'll be the only teams without head coaches. That's sports. Jay Corwin, NBC News Radio.
LSU that went to SMU. Nice catching like 10 passes.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back, Jeff Duncan, Amos Morale. We're breaking down recruiting today. A little offbeat topic. We normally get heavy into the Saints and Pels and the LSU scene, but I like talking recruiting. I've always been big into it, and I think in this area, in this state, in this city, you could never talk enough recruiting because it's such a huge part of what we're talking about down the road. I mean, we see it happening right now in Clemson. Those recruiting classes that Clemson has put together the last 4 or 5 years have led to them being a national power.
Yeah, championship contenders. So, they're, and that's one of the things, especially in a state like this where college football is so huge. When you look at LSU, you even look at like Tulane, Louisiana Tech's on the come up. They've been recruiting really well. So, it's one of those things. It's people, especially right about now after like the season ends. And everyone's like now looking for that hope for the future for their programs.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge thing.
Now, was Travis Etienne, I didn't see him play in high school. Was he that good? Because, I mean, the kid's the best running back at Clemson.
He was really good in high school. I think he ran for almost 3,000 yards his junior year. The thing with him is that kid is just blazingly fast. I remember the first time I saw him because he played at Jennings. They play a lot of teams in that area. It's a small town. It's, West Louisiana. It doesn't get the attention it does. But I remember it was at a camp, I think, before his senior year. He goes out, runs almost like a 4.2, 4.29, maybe 4.28 in the 40. All the guys were hand timing him. They're like, I don't know if this is right. He comes walking up to him and is like, hey, so would y'all time me at? And the guy's like, well, I got you at a 4.28. The other guy's like, I got you at a 4.29. And he's like, yeah, that's about right. And then just walks off, doesn't do any drills, doesn't do anything else. I think he went to work after that. And it was just, who is this kid? So then we all start looking up his tape. And that's when you can see that, all right, he's not just a guy that they find some way to get in the ball and he just runs straight. He's a football player, and he just happens to be freakishly fast. So he's one that, and I think a lot of teams at first kind of didn't get on him because of the level of competition he was playing. Like, yeah, he's dominating these guys, but, he's not doing it against, some of these 5A teams out here or some of the big teams in Baton Rouge. So I think that was something that kind of made a lot of teams hesitate on him. But, they all jumped on him at the end. He was committed to Texas A&M for a little bit. LSU offered him towards the end there, but I think once Clemson came in, they were coming off that national championship, that just he was like, all right, well, I'm going to go play and win somewhere.
Looks like a very good fit, too.
Oh, yeah.
No, he played early at a big Power 5 program.
Yeah, and I think that even surprised him a little that, they had guys coming back. But, an injury here, he goes out there, gets a few carries, doesn't make him regret it, and they find ways to keep him involved in the offense.
Yeah, there's so many kids in Louisiana like that. I mean, there's so many great players. And you mentioned Louisiana Tech. When I started my journalism career, it was up in North Louisiana. I worked in Monroe, and that was before recruiting blew up to the level it is now, where you have, mixtapes and everybody's got their own highlight reel. But back then, Louisiana Tech and Northeast Louisiana and even Grambling would get these kids from North Louisiana that would fall through the cracks that didn't get recruited, and invariably a handful of them would go on to the NFL. It was amazing to me how many great players there were. And that was in North Louisiana, where the population isn't nearly as great as it is in South Louisiana. So in Louisiana Tech, I've noticed over the years, I mean, they get kids from Texas and Louisiana, some from South Arkansas a little bit, but they're very confined recruiting area, and look how good they do every year.
Oh, and then I think you're about to see a nice little rush of guys going that way. You look at Trent Taylor for the San Francisco 49ers. That's a Louisiana Tech product. He had a really good rookie season. You look at the Cowboys. They had what's his name? The defensive back. He played really well. So they've
from Tech.
Yeah, so they're starting to put some guys up there, running back. They're putting some guys in the league that are doing well, and like I said, that's what a lot of these kids want to see. They want to see that if I go here, it'll help me get ready for the next level, and they're doing pretty good. So I think you're about to see, and they've pulled a few guys this year that I think will be some big impact players. One of them's out of Plaquemine, Wayne Toussaint. That's a kid that can absolutely fly when the ball is in his hands. You look at a kid out of Arrett who got hurt in the Jamboree, Isaiah Windman. That's a kid that was getting a lot of Pac-12 interest. Mississippi State was looking at him, but he was hurt. He didn't play his senior year, so Louisiana Tech was able to come in there and really go out and go after him. And he's going to be a big-time player for him once he gets healthy. I think he'll be a starter. He's a kid with great size, good speed, good instincts. And then you look at the guys they got on the roster now. I know you just pulled one of them up.
Yeah, Amik Robertson, who my Louisiana Tech sources had told me earlier this year, watch this kid. He was a freshman from Thibodaux. I think he started as a true freshman, and I know he was one of the leading interceptors in the country. He had a big interception in their bowl game. Mm-hmm. That's another kid, like it slips through the cracks for whatever reason, and ends up going to Tech and having a productive career early on.
Well, that was a kid that was just absolutely scrappy. He got hurt his junior year, still played, ran for 200 yards on a torn ACL, and then goes out there, rehabs like a monster to get ready for his senior year, goes out and balls. Houston was on him. LSU started coming at him towards the end there, but he decided on Tech, wanted to go play somewhere, and look at him. Just cutting up.
He's balling. All right, that's hour one in the books, our recruiting segment of Dunc and Holder, and a lot of great information during the first hour. And in the second hour, we're going to hear from Larry Holder is going to check in from the Pro Bowl in Orlando, Josh Katzenstein from the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. So stay with us during this break. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We are Dunc and Holder.
Snapchat users will soon be able to share some video content outside the app to places like Facebook and Twitter. Initially, users will only be able to share the Stories feature to their linked social media accounts and not the popular My Story feature. You'll now see a GIF option when adding stickers to a photo or video in Instagram Stories. You'll be able to browse GIFs that are trending as well as search its library for a specific animated image. Netflix will start releasing 15-minute-long comedy specials. The sets will focus on respected veterans and up-and-comers, but nobody who's considered an A-list star. Some of the initial comics will include Tim Dillon, Sam Jay, and Josh Johnson. Streaming companies doubling down on its stand-up programming, but also experimenting with this new micro format, seeing as how most comedy specials usually last around an hour or more. Online education platform Udacity is now accepting applications for its Flying Car Nano Degree program. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
WODT, WNOE, FM, HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280.
Try that again.
Fox Sports trending now.
The NFL and Players Association have completed their joint investigation into the treatment of Panthers quarterback Cam Newton during the team's playoff loss to the Saints. They say the Panthers properly followed concussion protocol on Newton, and they will not be penalized. The league's being criticized for rejecting an AmVets ad for its upcoming Super Bowl program. The Veterans Group wanted to run an ad with an American flag and the hashtag Please Stand, but it was deemed by the league to be maybe too political. Washington State quarterback Luke Falk normally wears number 4, but will sport the number 3 jersey in the upcoming Senior Bowl in honor of his late teammate Tyler Helinski. Helinski was the presumed Cougars quarterback for the upcoming season, but he died earlier this month at age 21 of a suicide. Breaking sports news as it happens, I'm Deb Carson.
Attention all women who have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. In February 2016, Johnson & Johnson baby powder was ordered to pay $72 million by a jury to women who died of ovarian cancer after 35 years of using the talcum baby powder product. Multiple studies show women who have long-term use of baby powder products with talcum for feminine hygiene can increase the risk of contracting ovarian cancer. If you or a family member has been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and used Johnson & Johnson or Shower to Shower baby powder prior to the diagnosis, call Talcum Baby Powder Helpline today. 800-457-3280. You may be entitled to substantial compensation. The consultation is free, and you'll pay nothing unless there is a recovery in your favor. If you or a loved one used talcum baby powder-based products before being diagnosed with or died from ovarian cancer, call Talcum Baby Powder Helpline today. 800-457-3280. 800-457-3280. 800-457-3280.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug. I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it. Drowned it again and felt that it was cold. Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part. SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
You count on your air conditioning to work perfectly and to make your family comfortable. So if you ever have a problem, you want someone who will be there to help right away. At Burkhardt Air Conditioning and Heating, that's the commitment we've made to our customers for over 25 years. Our NATE certified technicians provide emergency service for any type and any brand of cooling system. If you need help anytime, call us. We promise to get you up and running again quickly and professionally. And if you're thinking about an upgrade, right now, we'll help you save with quality cooling equipment from Amana. These systems come with incredible warranties, and we have 5 years interest-free financing available now. Plus, our Amana brand HVAC systems are highly efficient. With Burkhardt's 25% energy reduction guarantee, you'll continue saving on utility bills for years to come. Whether it's an emergency repair or a brand new cooling system, we're here to help when you need us. Trust Burkhardt Air Conditioning and Heating. Visit acpromise.com.
Could it be the end of the iPhone X? While no official announcement has been made from Apple, an analyst for KGI Securities issued a report claiming Apple will discontinue manufacturing and selling the iPhone X by mid-2018. The report suggests having the X available at a discount, something Apple does after releasing a new iPhone, could hurt overall sales of the new mid-range product line, since the cost of the older iPhone would be close to the mid-range models. One of the world's biggest appliance makers is already reacting to President Trump's decision to put tariffs on some foreign goods, including washing machines. Correspondent Bill Zimfer has more.
South Korean-based Samsung isn't happy about the tariffs announced on Monday, and they say the ultimate losers will be American consumers and workers. The end result, according to Samsung, will be fewer choices and higher prices. Two South Korean companies, Samsung and LG, are the leaders in major appliance sales in the United States.
1 minute.
Some of their products assembled here in the U.S. Bill Zimfer, NBC News Radio.
New York City is suing 5 major pharmaceutical companies over opioids. Mayor Bill de Blasio says it's time to hold companies that manufacture and distribute opioids accountable for the epidemic of overdose deaths. De Blasio says 1,000 New Yorkers overdosed on prescription opioids last year, more than from car crashes and murders combined. Johnson & Johnson, Teva, and Janssen Pharmaceuticals of New Jersey, plus Purdue Pharmaceuticals of New York and Cephalon of Pennsylvania are named in the $500 million lawsuit. The makers of Kleenex and Huggies is slashing about 5,000 jobs and 10 factories this year. Kimberly-Clark announced today that in an effort to cut costs, as sales wane, it will cut roughly 14%
what you
of
lose
its
in
global
that year is you
workforce.
lose the
Increased competition and
marketing
decreasing prices on Amazon and Walmart have forced the company into reducing its workforce. Consumer and business news. Ted Asregatta, NBC News Radio.
Dunc and Holder, Hour 2. Hour 1 in the books, our recruiting coverage of, preview of National Signing Day. 2 weeks away. It's hard to believe it's already here. And a lot of the luster's been taken off because of the early signing period. But we wanted to give everybody kind of a lay of the land and what to expect here 2 weeks from now. And Amos Morales sitting in for Larry Holder, who we're going to hear from this hour. He's probably sitting out by a pool in Orlando somewhere, trying to keep his shaved head from getting sunburned. We'll ask him about that. But Amos, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Pelicans because we didn't talk about them during the first hour. But that was a remarkable performance the other night by DeMarcus Cousins. And I think everybody in New Orleans is like awed by his talent and his ability, and the Pelicans to some degree with these two bigs. But then everybody's kind of hesitant to dive in on the bandwagon. Everybody's got 1 foot in, 1 foot out because this team has not been able to put it all together consistently, and they kind of tease us with these incredible performances like we saw the other night. What's your thoughts? Did you watch the game, and what did you think of the performance?
No, I didn't really watch too much of it. I saw a lot of the plays he was making. I think that game really showed off why, he's such an elite talent. You see the passes he's dishing. You see that he's aggressive on defense when he wants to be. He's obviously a versatile scorer for a guy that big. And you look at, he seems to be able to play really well off of Davis. He needs the ball, I think, a little bit more than Davis does. So that's why I think they work so well. So Anthony can get his points off of rebounds and whatnot, whereas Cousins likes to kind of create his own offense. But I think, like you said, it's hard to jump on that Pelicans bandwagon because once you look outside of those two guys, on a given night, you don't know where the points are coming from outside of them, and they can score 60 or 70 points, but they're not playing as a team good enough defense where those two guys can beat you, especially in that conference. There's so many teams that are just elite offensively. You look at the Rockets, the Warriors, even Dallas is playing some good ball with some of these young guys they've got. So I think it's just you're still missing that guy that you can count on reliably to be the third scorer.
Yeah, I agree. And I was impressed with the Bulls the other night. I didn't know much about them. I knew they'd been playing better. But frankly, it looked like a young team that was in rebuilding mode. But they play hard. I know Fred Hoiberg's had his up and downs as an NBA coach, but that team plays hard for him right now. And they gave the Pelicans all they could handle. I mean, Drew's younger brother, Justin Holiday, I felt sorry for him. He had 3 free throws at the buzzer, got fouled on a three-pointer. If he knocks down all 3, they win the game. They hold on and win. He makes the first 2, misses the third, and it goes to overtime, and the Pelicans pull it out. And I was impressed. There's a lot of good young teams in the league right now. I feel like there's a little more parity than we thought. I don't think anybody's going to unseat the kingpins like the Warriors, but there are a lot of teams on a given night that for instance, the Pelicans, who are not one of those kingpins, if they don't bring it, they'll get beat. And they were going to get beat the other night, and all of a sudden they flipped the switch and got after them defensively, and we could see the potential in this team. And I think that's what bothers a lot of people is they see the potential, but it's such a long season too. It's 82 games. It's hard to get worked up about a win or a loss when you play that many games. It's like almost like a baseball season. People blowing in the wind on wins and losses, and it's not like the NFL. Can't look at it that way.
Well, yeah, but the thing too, I think that what probably helped the fans is if they could get on a run, maybe put together 3 or 4 games here and there, because it seems like they'll go out, they'll have this double overtime win against the Bulls, Wouldn't surprise me if they lose to Charlotte tonight, because that's just sort of how the season's gone. They'll go out, have this really great performance where it seems like everybody's hitting, everything's together, the defense plays well, Davis and Cousins are both on, Rondo's dishing, and then the next night it seems like, it's Davis and Cousins versus whoever they're playing. So it's one of those things where I think they're just looking for, I think the fans, especially in this city, it's a city that rewards winners. So, I think they're looking for them to go together, to go out there and put together a few victories. I mean, you look at how they treated the Saints, those first few games, a lot of visiting team fans were there. But by the end of the season, once, they had, put those wins together and show that they were for real, that dome got very pro-black and gold once again. So I think it's a city that rewards winners. So I think if they can go out there and put together some, string 3 or 4 games together, regardless of who they're playing, that would go a long way to getting these fans to buy into what they're doing.
And they play in Charlotte tonight against the Charlotte Hornets, a team that's pretty good at home, but the Pelicans have fared very well against the Eastern Conference. It's against the Western Conference that they've really struggled. Tonight will be a key game in what we're to the end of what we're talking about. Can they follow up a great performance like they had against Chicago, or will they lay another egg and everybody be back off the bandwagon? But they're right in the mix right now in the Western Conference for the 5th to 8th seed. It looks like there's 9 teams have kind of separated themselves from the pack. Somebody's going to be left in this game of musical chairs not making the playoffs, but it looks to me like there's 9 teams, and the Pelicans are certainly in that mix. I think the key for them is to not end up 7 or 8, because you end up playing probably the Rockets or the Warriors, and I think they're clearly the 2 best teams in the West.
Yeah, and there's teams that, they'll get you into a track meet, and there's very, like everyone has to be on to get in a track meet with the Rockets or the Warriors. So, yeah, I think I'm with you there. If they can, get that 6th or that 5th seed, they can be some matchup problems for some teams. When Boogie and Davis are on the floor at the same time, you basically got to pick your poison, because there's very few teams that can guard both of those guys effectively, especially with the way that Cousins has been hitting his outside shot this year. So I think, if they can avoid those 2 teams where, you've got to be on your A game 4 nights out of 7, I think, that's a team that could make some noise in the playoffs.
And I don't know what's going on with the Cavaliers. I mean, I know every year they kind of have these swoons and drama up in Cleveland, and they put it together and they make the NBA Finals. I don't know. This year it seems like it might be a little more dire. They lost again last night to the Spurs. I think that's now 10 of their last 13 they've lost or something like that. I don't know. Are they going to turn that thing around, you think?
I think it's one of those things where you're just so used to LeBron teams doing so well. And, you got to remember there was some turnover. You did lose Kyrie Irving, who is a winner, as you can see in Boston. They lose Gordon Hayward for the year, and Kyrie goes out there and, whatever, I'll take these rookies. We'll make them good, and we'll go out here and we'll, be one of the top teams in the East. So, I think that there is something to be said of losing a player of that caliber. And, the fact that Isaiah Thomas is back, but, he's coming off of an injury. He's got a lot of rust. So I think, you're looking at a team that's kind of going through those growing pains right now.
The disturbing part for me, though, Amos, is the defense. They gave up 114 to the Spurs last night, but 148 the other night to the Thunder. And then before that, 118 to the Warriors, which we all know can score. But before that, 133 to the Raptors, 127 to the T-Wolves, and then 131 to the Magic, or 127 to the Magic in a win. I mean, that's just flat-out effort, I would think. I don't know. That's got to be a little disturbing to LeBron, who's a great defensive player himself.
But you look at that roster, I mean, who on that team is currently has ever, aside from LeBron, has been known to be a really good defensive player? Isaiah Thomas, got his money off of filling it up.
J.R. Smith's a gunner.
Yeah,
Korver's a gunner.
Amon Shumpert's a pretty decent defensive player, but when you're playing with some of these guys, you want to keep the guys that can fill it up. Kevin Love even is not a super, he's never been known as a great defensive player. So
I think I could score on Kevin Love.
Whereas Kyrie Irving, I hate to keep going back to that, but you trade him off. He was a guy that would, go out there and lock up some guys defensively. Derrick Rose back in his day would go out there and play some good defensive.
Right.
But he,
Dwayne Wade's at the back end of his career. You're right. They've got a lot of big name guys, a lot of guys we're all familiar with, but I'm not sure when you put it all together it's going to work. I don't know. That's probably why they're so active in the trade market. We've heard Iman Shumpert's name linked to trades. They're trying to get George Hill, who would be a great addition for them, I think, at guard away from Sacramento. It's a poor fit out in Sacramento, but that's one to watch because Boston hasn't even had Gordon Hayward, and they're running away with the East right now. It looks like they're going to get the number 1 seed. I'll be surprised if they don't. And there's this outside possibility that he heals up depending on how deep they go in the playoffs, and they get him back, and that would be something else.
Yeah, but then you wonder how much of that would just be psychological, because part of the reason I think they're playing so well is that the guys they've got right now know how to play with each other. They
know the roles.
They're young guys. You look at Brown, who's improved a lot. You look at the rookie Tatum, who's coming on and playing
really well.
Incredible, giving them really good minutes. So I think part of that is that you've got guys that just they're playing well together, and you throw in a Gordon Hayward to that in the playoffs, that might mix it up. But one of the things about that team is long. They are long. I would hate to be lining up against them on defense just because I wouldn't know where to pass it. I'd be scared my shots getting blocked because Tatum's long, Brown's long, Kyrie's long for a point guard. It's just that's an impressive looking team.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When you got Jaylen Brown playing shooting guard, he's about 6'8". You got some defensive. That team can play defense. Now they lost last night.
Who's a versatile.
They lost in L.A. last night. It's kind of surprising. L.A.'s been up and down, of course.
That's a team though that it's a young team that's got some good guys that I think maybe next year is a team when you can start talking about the Lakers as a playoff team.
4 losses in a row for the Celtics, which started with that overtime loss to the Pelicans at home. Then they lost to the Sixers, to the Magic at home, both the Magic and the Sixers at home, and then they go on the road. So Boston kind of hit a little bit of a snag here, but that happens in the NBA when you play 82 games. They're still 34-14, pretty much got first place locked up in the East right now. Well, they're a game and a half ahead of Toronto. So Toronto's kind of that team that no one ever pays attention to because they seem to put together great regular seasons and then kind of flame out in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think their team, though, you look at DeMar DeRozan, it seems like he's kind of upped his game this season. So I'd be interested to see what they do in the playoffs this year. He seems to have, added a little bit to his game, particularly in the outside shot. So I think that'll be one to watch.
No doubt about it. Now, switching gears over to the Super Bowl, the odds are in, and the New England Patriots, no surprise, are 5-point favorites in that game. Excuse me. And I think that line has come down a little bit, so that means a lot of the action early on has been on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are, I think, mentally up to the challenge. I just don't know if they've got a good enough team to compete with New England. What are your thoughts on the Super Bowl?
Well, one thing you mentioned, mentally up to the challenge, I think that team is incredibly confident in what they're doing. Nick Foles went out there against arguably the best defense in the NFL and just, was slinging it, letting that ball fly against, really good cornerbacks, really good defensive linemen. And so I can understand why they would be confident, especially after he goes out there and plays that way in the playoffs. It's interesting.
When we get back, I want you to – I'm not going to ask you for your pick because that's too early. We still got a week and a half. But I want to get more of your thoughts on that game because I've started out thinking that New England was going to truck them and it wasn't going to be competitive. But now I'm starting to flip. I'm waffling a little bit. And you're kind of, I think, in the same corner as I game. But let's take a break, come back and talk a little bit more Super Bowl and get your thoughts on why Philadelphia you think has a chance in that game. You're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stick with us. Okay. I always get this little tickle in my throat after I cough. That was... You were sick too?
your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword.
I wasn't thinking your throat. You got to call.
Hey, we got West Bank Rick.
Text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. That's lock to 200-200.
You know, like, cause
Sure,
I know when I
you can
feel
go
sick,
out to
it's
a
like, I don't
parade
do
and then
anything.
get pelted with
Stuff
rolls.
hurts. Like, random things.
So you
Or
weren't
you
sick?
can listen to the crew of Sports 1280 and catch free Pelicans tickets.
So
No
it's like,
ducking,
take some
no
Dayquil
stuffing in a
after
bottle
during
of
the
questionable
day,
fluid.
wore off, like,
Just keep listening for your chance to win Pels tickets.
Yeah, I've been sick for about
If
3
you need
weeks,
a
but
payday loan fast, try
I feel like I'm over it
LendUp.com.
now.
Apply in minutes on your phone
Larry
or
was really
computer, and
sick.
you could have cash in your account fast. LendUp.com, the better
Trying to
payday
see if
loan.
Josh has found
LendUp.com,
anything.
subject to availability in your state. LendUp is a licensed credit services organization, not a direct lender, in Ohio and Texas.
The 4 for $4 from Wendy's has a lot of fans because it's a deal that gives you a sandwich plus 4 nuggets, a small fry, and drink, all for just $4. But now the 4 for $4 has more variety than ever with 8 sandwiches.
None of that math.
I'm loyal to the double
way.
standard.
I'm Junior Bacon Cheeseburger through and through.
I pledge myself to the
Then she
crispy
goes,
chicken
puts some in.
sandwich.
All right,
I'm loyal
7:30.
to
I'm like, nope.
my
Still
hunger.
Whether you're loyal to one
And
sandwich
then they
or
were
all
like,
8, the Wendy's
okay,
4 for $4 has
did
a
the car in
sandwich
front
for
of you leave?
So
And
try
I'm like,
them
yes.
all and pick your favorite.
All right.
Now that's deliciously
Okay, well,
different.
what did you have in your? They basically had to redo it. I'm
They
like,
gave you the wrong order.
well, they were gonna, and I was just like, but I was
Ed Sheeran is arguably one of the top songwriters and the current crop of writers penning
See, I would
tracks
never
for
caught that.
themselves
How'd
and
you-
other
you just
artists.
knew
But
in
in a
your
new
head?
documentary on Rock and Roll Hall of
But I
Famer
just
Elton
wouldn't-
John,
yeah, see,
Sheeran
maybe that's it.
confesses his jealousy over
like the
one of
whole
John's
idea of the thing
signature
is that it's
songs.
$4
In a clip
$4,
from
so it
Elton John,
shouldn't
the
be more
nation's
than-
favorite song, which premieres on
I
Reels,
think the
Sheeran
exact,
calls
like,
John's
with
"Can You
taxes,
Feel
it's
the
like
Love Tonight" from
483
Disney's The
or
Lion
something.
King a
So
gem.
she said
Sheeran
10,
confesses
I'm
that's one thing I'm eternally
That doesn't
jealous
sound
of
right.
Elton.
And then 7, I'm like, that still doesn't sound right. So
Justin Timberlake
need
is
to-
out
we
promoting
need
the
to do
release of
this.
his upcoming album "Man of the
And did
Woods"
you finally
and
get it
current
right?
single
Oh, yeah,
"Filthy."
eventually.
But the
But I have
36-year-old
no
pop
clue what they
star and
charged me.
actor is also
I just didn't
promoting
even
the
look at the
idea of
receipt. I was
having
just
more
really hungry
babies
at that
with
point,
his
so I was
wife
like, just
Jessica
give me the
Biel.
food.
In a
I don't
recent
care.
interview,
What did that
Timberlake
person
said
order?
he
I'll
wants
take
to
it.
have as many kids as we can.
Yeah, there's nothing
the
worse than,
couple's
like,
son
getting
Silas
home
will be 3
and
years
having the wrong
old this
order.
April. "Man
That's
of the
the
Woods"
worst.
comes out February 2nd.
There's only one fast food I actually like.
All right, 30 seconds.
Camila Cabello's "Havana" featuring Young
serious.
Thug
Yeah.
is
So,
number
like,
1 on the Billboard
hey,
Hot
man, you
100
forgot the red
singles
beans.
chart.
So you
The
want the,
former Fifth
exact
Harmony
order.
member
I
earned
agree
his
with that.
first chart
You forgot
topper
the-
on the survey, and
I
the
need the
same
sauce,
week
bro.
that her debut solo album
I
"Camilla"
will hang at
debuted
that
atop
window
the
to make sure
Billboard
everything's
200
supposed to be in
album
there.
sales chart.
The guy
Ed
comes out,
Sheeran's
"Everything
version
all right?"
of
And I'm
Post
like, "I'm
Malone's
checking. I'll let you know in a
Rockstar
second."
Bruno Mars's "Finesse" remix, and
I think a lot of
Halsey's
people
"Bad
do
at
that.
Love"
There, you
round
notice
out
that?
this week's
Nobody
top
wants to get the
5.
wrong Popeyes.
That's
Is
entertainment.
it spicy or not
G.
spicy?
NBC
Oh, yeah.
News
I'll
White
take
meat
the
or-
wrong McDonald's. I'll take the wrong Burger King.
This is Duncan Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Don't forget West Bank Rick.
Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Amos Morale here, sitting in for Larry Holder is on the road down at the Pro Bowl in Orlando, and we're going to go to the phone lines really quick with one of our loyal listeners, West Bank Rick. What's going on, Rick? How you doing today?
Oh, doing great. I wanted to chime in when y'all was talking about Boston. When you look at that trade that Boston and Cleveland went through, you kind of say that Cleveland got duped because they picked the players that they wanted to bring to their team for Kyrie. And I thought they got a draft pick or whatever, too, also. But you got to give it up to Brad Stevens. I think that's the head coach of Boston.
Right.
But he manipulated Cleveland in thinking that they were getting great players because of a good coach he is at Boston. And I don't think he get enough credit for keeping it going after losing, I don't know, so many players on his team and still look like he ain't never lost anything.
Yeah,
and
a
the
great
Pelicans
point, Rick.
didn't have any problems with beating them. So go Pels. Peace.
Thanks, Rick. And great points. I think Brad Stevens was a guy when he went to the NBA from Butler. I didn't know how it was going to work out, frankly.
A lot of question marks.
Right, and he's turned out to be a great NBA coach. And look, Danny Ainge has to get a lot of the credit too. He runs the basketball operations there. At that trade when it first went down, I thought it was about 50-50. I thought it was a good trade both ways.
Got good things out of that one because I thought Isaiah Thomas is a good guy. He could play off of LeBron because he's a guy that can hit a spot shot. And they picked up a few role players that had done some really good things for Boston. But I think going to what Rick said about Brad Stevens, I think that's one of the things that, when he was at Butler, he wasn't pulling these 5-star and 4-star guys. So he's used to getting guys, figuring out what they do well, and putting them in a position that they can help him win. So I think you're seeing that with, Jaylen Brown is a guy that they drafted a couple years ago, and he's, really developing into a good player. Jason Tatum's finding a nice role. I think that's just sort of what he's doing. But I think you also can't overlook the GM, the work that the front office is doing over there as far as acquiring players, because these are guys that they find that fit what they're trying to do. So
yeah, Jaylen Brown was a guy. He was at Cal. I think he's out of high school out of Georgia, and signed with Cal Berkeley. And when I watched him play, he was a classic, just incredible athlete, but didn't have refined skills yet. But when you get to the NBA, one of the easiest things to do is to learn to shoot. I know it sounds crazy because a lot of guys can't shoot, but really good athletes like that can eventually get better. I mean, we look at Boogie Cousins. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins couldn't shoot at all when he was at Kentucky, and now he's a good three-point shooter because that's all you do when you get to the NBA is practice, work on your game, work on your skills.
No class.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about class. You don't have to worry about any of that. We saw it happen. I mean, I'm old school, but I mean, Magic Johnson came out of Michigan State, developed into a really good three-point shooter. Jason Kidd became one of the all-time leading three-point shooters, really couldn't shoot in high school or at Cal. Michael Jordan even developed into a very good shooter over his NBA career.
I got one for you. It's a guy that used to play for the Bucks, Michael Redd.
Yep.
Ended up being that was all he was good at towards the end there. And, at Ohio State, he was not a shooter.
No, and that's why I think people at NBA, obviously scouts, personnel men, coaches, they're going to go get a Jaylen Brown and realize his potential's down the road, and we're already seeing it. I mean, he's a lot better than he was a year ago. And I think Boston, I still think they've got another draft pick, a high draft pick, if I remember. One of them went to Cleveland in the trade.
Yeah, but they still got one of those Nets picks from that just
awful trade.
When you
talk about fleecing somebody.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. That front office is doing work over there.
Yeah, and I think Cleveland is at a crossroads now because, you mentioned it, Amos. They made this deal. They're trying to put something together now, trying to get they've been rumored trying to get DeAndre Jordan. George Hill, sounds like that deal's almost done, but that's not going to put them over the top. Maybe Jordan helps them, gives them a rim protector.
Yeah,
certainly
in defense.
Yeah, he would help their defense immeasurably. I just wonder what they would give up to get him, because if you're the Clippers, why would you give up on DeAndre Jordan unless you think he's going to leave down the road? I don't know.
Well, I think it's in that case, it's one of those, are we going anywhere? Are we starting over? If we're starting over, might as well try and see what we can get for it. But I don't know. It's one of those things with DeAndre. It feels like he's in the trade talks every year. I think part of the problem with Cleveland is that LeBron's just too good. He's one of those guys that can make a bad team competitive. I think his rookie year, they went from having the first overall pick to a playoff team. And that's part of the problem is that he's really hard to build around in the traditional sense. You're chasing free agents and hoping that they fit with them because you're not getting those game-changing draft picks with LeBron just because the way he plays, he makes so many guys better and just he can impact a game so much by himself. So you got to think that some of this is just maybe if LeBron was not as good, they would, some of those guys would put in more effort and they'd, be able to draft guys instead of, building a team full of former All-Stars and former, old guys basically.
But part of me feels like, and you and I've had this debate before about LeBron because I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, but I've come to appreciate him over the years. But part of the problem I feel like is LeBron is so heavily involved in being half the GM that he gets a lot of these guys in there himself. And then it doesn't work out, and then he's starting to blame the GM, and he was the one that wanted him there to begin with. I mean, he's got all of his old Nike buddies, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade. They're all his guys. Tristan Thompson was his call. He's with Rich Paul, his agent, and here they are with all these LeBron guys, and they're struggling. I'm sure he helped orchestrate that trade for Kevin Love. Kevin Love turns. I don't know if you'd say that's a win trade or not. I don't know. I don't know how that trade's worked out for them.
I think that one was surprisingly more even than I thought it would be, just because Wiggins it's taken him a little more time to develop into that truly impact scorer. Because I thought he was, destined to be, a huge impact player. But he's kind of like the second guy there in Minnesota. But this year it seems like he stepped up his game offensively. So I think it was a little more even. I thought that Minnesota won that trade when it happened. Because I thought if, the Cavaliers kept Wiggins, he's able to play behind LeBron because Wiggins is a guy that's an athlete too. I think it's just taking him a little bit longer to develop than I was anticipating. So,
well, the Pels in Charlotte, as we said tonight, a big game, and then they come home and play the Houston Rockets on Friday. That's going to be a game I'm going to go to and attend because I think it's a great window into where this team is at. They're healthy now. They've been playing together. Now they get one of the kingpins in the league on their home court. It's an ESPN game. The stars should be out. There should be no excuses. We'll see how they measure up against one of the elite teams in the league. But first, let's take a break, and then we'll switch gears. We'll go down to Orlando, talk to Larry Holder, co-host of this show, who's down at the Pro Bowl. Heavy Saints influence at the Pro Bowl this year, and we'll talk to Larry about what's going on down there other than him sitting out by the pool trying to keep his bald head from being sunburned. And you're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, iHeartRadio app, and NOLA.com. Stick with us.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by SOS Children's Villages.
We are seeing a pretty nice day around here. Chilly with temperatures in the 50s for highs, but overall, plenty of sunshine filtered through high clouds is going to make for a very nice afternoon if you're dressed for it. Temperature-wise, going into the evening hours, it will be chilly once again, but our big changes don't really come until the weekend, so enjoy the dry weather until then. For Fox 8 Year Weather Authority and Bounce TV, I'm meteorologist Nakandra Norwood.
War, poverty, and disaster have left millions of children around the world orphaned, abandoned, alone. When their parents can't be there, SOS Children's Villages is there in 134 countries, including the U.S. To make a difference in a child's life, go to sosusa.org.
This week on Big Easy Deals, get a family 4-pack to the Audubon Butterfly Garden and Insectarium for just $34.
Great, I think we hit right
Watch
in the
as
middle
the beautiful
of
butterflies swoop and soar all around you. Go to foxsportsam1280.com. Keyword deals for your half-off certificate today.
For over 80 years. Yeah, he said call him back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I figured he's right in the middle of
is a New Orleans
getting paid.
tradition.
Okay.
Mandina's Restaurant.
Way to go.
Bad
New Orleans
timing.
Staples.
Bad timing, McGee.
Orleans
McGee. Here's my commercial, Dave.
And some of the best.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm under a spell.
Always Mandina's.
Mandina's
if you need a payday loan fast, try
I don't even care if they send money. If they can just send the Tuesday special.
Let's just go eat there for free.
Send it on Tuesdays. That's the one day I'm concerned with.
Yeah, what's Tuesday?
It's the stuffed chicken breast. It's stuffed with oyster dressing and
never had
sweet
it.
potatoes.
Oh my God, yes. Really? Sounds good.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's the 1,000-point club. King James
I love
becomes
Mandina's.
just the
Love everything
7th
about it.
Yeah, they got good onion rings, too.
Oh,
First
yeah.
picked up basketball
I like the
when I was
crab
5
fingers
years
too,
old.
and the wine
First started
sauce.
playing organized basketball when I was 9. All the way up until this point. So I give a lot of thanks to a lot of people.
LeBron needed just 7 points entering last night's game in San
Congratulated
Antonio,
him. He congratulated himself before the game.
102 loss to the Spurs.
Congratulated.
In the
Look, he tweeted
association,
congratulations.
Lakers nipped the Celtics in LA. Knicks
Well,
fall
no,
Warriors in the Bay.
hard work
Kings
or
over the
whatever,
Magic in Florida. Thunder sneak past the visiting Nets. Meanwhile, NBA All-Star
so
reserves
good.
around
I
the
think
West
that's
backups,
like the
including
problem, is
Russell
that
Westbrook and Klay
he's one of
Thompson.
those
The East
dudes where
led by
it's like,
John Wall and
man, we'll
Kristaps
just let him
Porzingis.
handle it.
The
Right.
National
I don't feel like
Baseball
I think that's
Hall of
true,
Fame
for sure.
will reveal its class
We'll
of
win just on
2018
his
tonight.
brilliance.
And Steve Wilkes is now officially in place as the new head
I
coach
think
of the
literally
Arizona
any
Cardinals.
team you put him on is a
leaving just
playoff
the Lions and Colts.
You
as
send
the
him to
only teams
Sacramento,
without head
they make the
coaches.
playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Sports, Jay Corwin, NBC News
Yeah,
Radio.
no doubt.
The hip, hop, you don't stop. Rock it out, baby, rubber to the boogity bang bang, the boogie to the boogity beat.
Your home for home team talk. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
And my friends are gonna try to move your feet.
Welcome back, Jeff Duncan, Amos Morale. We're talking NFL now during this segment. We're going to hear from Larry Holder in a little while. Our timing was bad. Larry talked to him yesterday before he headed down to Orlando for the Pro Bowl, and we thought 11:30 would be a safe time to talk, and it just so happened it was right in the middle of the press availability for Sean Payton. So we're going to get to Larry after he talks to Sean Payton and get some updates from Orlando on the 6 Saints Pro Bowlers. That's the most they've had in a long time. I can't remember. Maybe all the way. Is it 7 now?
Warford.
Oh, I forgot about the Warford got in as an alternate. You're right. I think it's the most since the Super Bowl team, if I remember correctly. And they've got not only the 7 Pro Bowl players, they've got their entire coaching staff down there, including Sean Payton, and they've got Drew Brees' 3 sons who are the ball boys. So heavy New Orleans influence, and that's why we have Larry Holder down there. I think we also have David Grunfeld, our photographer, on the scene to shoot it. Normally, nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. I really don't care about it anyway, to be honest with you. They've been trying to generate interest in that game for a while, and I'm not sure it's working.
It's just such a weirdly timed game. I mean, you look at baseball, their all-star game's in the middle of the season. The NBA's in the middle of the season. The NFL's used to be a week after the Super Bowl. It's just a weird time to have it, and now they're doing it in between. And it makes sense because I don't think a lot of these teams would want their players playing in the middle of trying to make the playoffs. But at the same time, it's just
Larry's here.
Everybody's kind of off football. You know what I mean? So It's just, and then now we're ready for the Super Bowl. That's what we're ready for.
They keep trying to change the format. They have people trying to, one time they had Michael Irvin and Chris Carter picking the team, and then they didn't make it NFC versus AFC. They're trying to keep interest in this game, and the fact is football's a violent game, and these players are paid a lot of money to play, and their teams don't want them getting hurt in the Pro Bowl. We've seen it happen in the past, so I don't know how they solve that riddle.
What if you let them pick teams, pick captains, let them pick teams, do a flag football tournament, but throw in like random rules, like only one-handed catches count, only
That's getting hokey. That's what the skills competition thing is. Well, let's go down to Larry and we'll get his thoughts on it. Larry is on the line from Orlando. Larry, you got a hat on your head. Is it sunny down there? We know that your hair's growing back slowly. But is it sunny down there? What's the weather like, and what's going on at the Pro Bowl?
It's sunny. I'm standing next to speakers right now, and I am at I guess it's the pre-skills competition. Jarvis Landry just had a ball bounce about 15 yards off the space into the sky because he was trying to catch a football from a drone. So maybe that could be part of the Pro Bowl next year, like the actual game where drones throw passes and stuff. But yeah, it's so the actual competition's about to begin, and so I can't give away the winners until tomorrow night, man. There's a I guess what you would say an embargo on the winners. I guess I can't give them out to you guys when it gets going.
What's the scene like down there? Are there fans at this thing? Is there a good crowd, or what's it like?
Oh yeah, the bleachers where they are, it's crowded, ready to go, so yeah, it's and they would now for the practices. We just both AFC and NFC had practices. I mean, the practice was about an hour, and basically it's walk-through practices, and let's see, Ryan Nielsen, the defensive line coach from the Saints, is throwing passes to Gerald McCoy and Cam Jordan. They're like just monkeying around and stuff, and so that's kind of the atmosphere, and you could tell it's a laxed atmosphere, and everybody's in T-shirts and shorts, and Drew Brees' kids are running around the field and being ball boys, and it's like Saints Central because you got the whole staff and you got all the players, like 7 players with the addition of Larry Warford. So no, it's a laxed atmosphere, and if you're for me, hey, if you want to come out here and do some reporting and just do some stories, like I was able to talk to a ton of guys today, so it's as far as getting your job done, that's good access. But yeah, it's it's just a fan-friendly event here, and we're at Wide World of Sports in Orlando.
Yeah, I've been to that facility. It's a great facility, incredible thing that the Disney Sports Complex. I've been there for basketball tournaments. And I think that's where Drew Brees has his camp, isn't it?
Yeah, he does his Dream Brees Foundations thing, and then Under Armour also does theirs out there.
All right. Well, if you had a chance to talk, you said you talked to some of the players. What's the vibe down there? All the guys over the loss to the Vikings. What are you hearing from the players involved with the Saints?
Well, Cam Jordan said specifically, no, he's not over it, and he won't get over it until they actually start playing real games next year. But like I do think that many of them are removed at least enough to at least understand how good of a season the Saints actually had. I mean, look, people on the team would like to say, well, other people didn't have these expectations and we probably exceeded them. Well, I'm pretty sure they stare each other in the mirror, stare themselves in the mirror and figure, look, they jumped above their own expectations. So I think they're at least able to appreciate the season that they have, and then the fact that you've got the Saints coaching staff here, and the fact that you've got so many players here. You've got 7 players here now, so they're at least able to appreciate what they're doing here, and you're around guys you've never met before. They're even to the point where, say, a week ago we're talking about Michael Thomas and Xavier Rhodes having beef, and now they're on the practice field dapping each other, and they've calmed down, and they're able to at least kind of get their guard down and enjoy kind of the greatness around them, and then honestly learn a thing or two. I mean, Cam Jordan told me they're going to be picking brains, and now he just wants Chandler Jones's longer arms. That's what he told me, and I said, well, yeah, I guess you could do that as far as a medical procedure, but I don't think you'll be able to get that done. But yeah, there's a lot of picking brains and just some, it's lax. It's an all-star type atmosphere.
Well, Larry, you make a great point. What great experience for these young players on the Saints roster. Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, both rookies. Mike Thomas, a second-year player. All of a sudden, they are now in the sharing locker room, probably going out to eat, going to meetings with some of these veteran guys that are on other teams. It can only enhance not only their learning acumen around the league, but also I think probably their confidence going forward when you have this kind of experience.
Oh, no doubt about it. And it's Drew Brees, for example. I'm sure Jared Goff's going to be picking his brain. Russell Wilson too. Jared Goff is kind of the oddball out because he's never been to these things, and of course Russell Wilson and Drew Brees have, and so it's something that you can't replicate. I mean, you can't get that anywhere else, and even Sean Payton, he's even here to kind of pick brains. The last time he was at a Pro Bowl was the 2006 season, and he said it was the first time he'd ever met up with Belichick. Remember, and he refers back all the time when he went fishing with Belichick, like during one of the days when they were here. And it's one of the things that he, as a coach, even though he's been in the game for such a long time now, it's even something for him to probably do. And him and Mike Tomlin are friendly. I'm sure they probably go out to eat or do whatever. And, it's a time for a lot of the league's best to at least kind of get together and mesh brains. And I mean, what happens on Sunday, people just pray they don't get hurt. That's basically the end-all, be-all of it.
Now, you talk about, the guys getting to meet up. Is there any chippiness in some of those walkthroughs? Some of the hustlers going a little bit too hard? Have you seen any of that?
I'm waiting for Michael Thomas to play this thing too hard. And I asked Drew Brees about it. He expects it. I asked Sean Payton about it. He expects it. I even asked Michael Thomas about it. He expects it. I know he's going to be doing some of these skills competitions today. It's really the main reason why I'm here. I want to see what he does. And I'm pretty sure Alvin Kamara is going to participate in one of these skill competitions as well. So I'm basically just here to see what these guys bring and how important it is to them. And but yeah, I would think maybe, like I said, the Rhodes Michael Thomas thing might have brought some chippiness. But look, it seems like even leading up to that, I think Xavier Rhodes admitted it wasn't a bad hit, so some of that stuff's gotten squashed now. I don't know if there's any kind of AFC bitterness. Now, I will tell you this. There were Tampa reporters here asking Quan Alexander about what Sean Payton was doing to Dirk Cutter, and he didn't want to talk about it. And I know it was brought up to Marshawn Lattimore about Mike Evans, and he's kind of downplayed that. And so Tampa reporters that sit around here stirring a little pot, but I don't think there's too many other people as far as who cover teams that are actually even here. So there's no real beef, say, on practice fields, at least that I've seen day one. I'll be here for one more practice tomorrow, but I anticipate it's going to be as lax as possible for these guys.
All right, the real hard-hitting question, Larry. How are you feeling? We know you were out here for a couple of days with the flu. How are you and the family recovering from this bug?
Well, family's all back to school, back to work, so I'm back to work, and I brought my Tamiflu with me. Still not done, so I didn't wear like a SARS mask, a medical mask, to when I talk with players.
Like Herbie did.
So I'm well enough, but I will say this, I don't know if any cocktails will be consumed on Tamiflu. I hear that's a bad combo. So if I'll be better once I can get like an IPA in my hand.
I hear you. Well, we admire your soldiering on despite being less than 100%. We expect nothing less here on Duncan Holder. Thanks for checking in. We're going to hear from you tomorrow, too, about the same time.
Yeah, tomorrow will be good shape. I'll probably be right in the might be toward the end of practice, so we might need to do it like a little earlier. But we'll be in touch. But, yes, you will hear from me tomorrow. So,
sounds good. All right, thanks, Larry.
Yep.
Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, guys. See y'all.
Larry Holder down at the Pro Bowl, our Pro Bowl correspondent here on Duncan Holder, checking in from Orlando, Florida. And when we come back after this next break, we're going to hear from our Senior Bowl correspondent, Josh Katzenstein, who is in Mobile, Alabama, at the Senior Bowl, and we'll get a report from him on the Saints' possible targets and what's going on, the comings and goings over there. It's always a crazy time in Mobile, Alabama. Stay with us on Duncan Holder. You're listening to the Duncan Holder Show, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stick with us. Yeah,
Hi, Eric Asher, host of Inside New Orleans. Been in the business now for 16 years, talking sports, politics, and news. Talking everything New Orleans, everything Louisiana.
Hey, I'm calling Josh now,
I saw that. I thought the players were all over.
Hey, am I calling Josh?
Yeah, please.
All right.
We'll get him in quick.
You got a strong
this is it, right, Dave?
Progress.
Yeah, this is the last segment.
All right, we'll do him quick.
Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're gonna let your budget be the boss of you? Take control with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find
nice
options
about it.
that
He
fit
stayed
your
in the
budget.
middle
Here's
and
some music
was
to
like,
get
hey, I got a
hooked.
question for you. And then I ran over with his recording.
I hear
so
your
he didn't get
budget
too close
laughing
to
at you. Oh, wait, that's just those
hilarious.
kids laughing at me. Ignore them!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Adopt a cop. This Mardi Gras season, the New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation is encouraging parade goers and
Listen to
locals
that smooth,
adopt
silky
a cop
voice.
in an effort to assist with feeding officers working long hours on the parade. Yeah, this guy sounds totally awesome.
I mean, I would buy anything he's selling.
And drinks for the I want to party with that guy. Carnival season. To learn how to adopt a cop, go to NOPJF.org. That's NOPJF.org.
So Josh jumped on this South Dakota State tight end.
You can adopt a cop. Shoot, he's not answering.
He's not. Yeah, he might be in the middle of a meeting or something. So if we don't get him, we'll go without it. He told me it might be a tough time.
100 meters in less time than it takes. To listen to this. Overcoming. Pass it on. From a foundation for a better life.
Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House, 3117 21st Street, open Monday through Thursday from 11 to 9, Friday and Saturday till 10. Serving the freshest Louisiana seafood. Come get oysters raw on the half shell, charbroiled, and more. Try our colder hot appetizer.
You go to California,
barbecue shrimp,
Georgia,
enjoy a great pasta dish, crawfish etouffee,
Florida, and Louisiana.
but save room for dessert.
What's that?
Down in our
If
beautifully
you're
renovated
recruiting.
dining rooms.
And
on
then
the
if you're
patio,
feeling bold, you go to
belly up to
Texas.
the bar to watch the home teams play. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar
yeah.
and Fish House.
But
Now
Texas is
open
going
to
to
the
be
French
harder
Club
now
7 days
with
a week at 512
Tom
Monroe.
Herman and Jimbo.
Duncan.
All right, I got with him, but he's not available. He's in the middle of something.
Okay, sounds good.
1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Jeff Duncan, Amos Morale here at Duncan Holder, and we are trying to get a hold of Josh Katzenstein, but he's stuck in a meeting with Mickey Loomis, of all people. So I'm not sure we're going to hear from Josh during the next 10 minutes of the program because he's got more important things to do.
Yeah, getting big time.
Down in, we're getting big time by Josh. But, we will hear from him tomorrow for sure from the Senior Bowl. And we're like Larry said, he'll check in from the Pro Bowl as well and get. It sounds like Larry got the better of those assignments. I think I've covered the Senior Bowl in the past, and the Senior Bowl, man, you are busy. You're constantly, there's people everywhere. In the entire NFL, it's like a convention. They're all down there. The pressure's off from the season, so it's kind of like all the coaches are blowing off steam, and they're just down there to kind of get familiar with the early draft process. So for the most part, they're partying, to be honest with you. It's a crazy scene, and they're all in one hotel, and it's just kind of crazy. The Pro Bowl is so laid back. Nobody really cares about the game, as Larry said. And I've got one story to relay, though, just to kind of give you some insight into how the Pro Bowl works, and Larry kind of alluded to it. Sean Payton said when he coached the Pro Bowl in 2006, Jared Allen was the defensive end on the roster at that time from the Vikings, great pass rusher. And he was asking Jared Allen about what was the most effective way to block him. He said, what hurts you worse, double team offensive lineman, or do you not like the chipping from a running back or a tight end? And Jared Allen told him, I don't like the chipping because I don't know where it's coming from the back of the tight end. And, of course, the next time the Saints played the Vikings, that's what they did. They chipped Jared Allen the whole game. And Peyton tells that story all the time of, I'm sure he's told his players, don't give out any state secrets because Jared Allen gave it up. And so that just shows you how the wheels turn in Sean Payton's head. He's always looking for an edge.
I'm sure Jared Allen probably still had a sack or two in that game.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure he did. But it's funny how
he's like, I'll let you get a couple.
Everybody's trying to work the angle, work the competitive advantage that they can. And certainly Sean Payton does that. I'm sure Bill Belichick did. And what Larry was alluding to earlier was when they played the Pro Bowl in 2006 when Sean was there, Bill Belichick was the AFC coach. That was when it was in Hawaii. And Sean Payton and Bill Belichick went on a deep sea fishing trip together. And that's when they got to know each other. They spent all this time in this little confined boat drinking beers. I think he said it was Heineken's or Coronas. It was Coronas. And he said the more Coronas that went down Bill Belichick, the more he loosened up, the more he was willing to tell him some stories and some state secrets. And they bonded over that trip. And that's what has led to their kind of relationship in the NFL.
Yeah, practicing against each other.
Yeah, making all these trades over the years. So the Pro Bowl is kind of a little bit of a convention for the elite players in the NFL. They bring their families. It's always a great time.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, it seems like a good week except for the game itself. But, it's always nice, though. I think the ones who really enjoy it are the skill guys, the wide receivers, because those one-handed acrobatic catches are kind of encouraged in this game. So I think that's the one thing I know that some of the fans might appreciate is getting to watch Jarvis go out there and try to one-hand it over a couple DBs that aren't giving it the full effort. So
well, going back to Josh Katzen's team, he's down in Mobile, and this is the start of the NFL draft process, the Senior Bowl. He's got a great story on NOLA.com for Saints fans. You might want to check it out. It's on Dallas Goedert. And of all places, he's from South Dakota State. He's a tight end, and we all know that tight end might be on the Saints' wish list this offseason. How does a guy end up NFL? They're talking about him being the top tight end in the draft, either first or second round. How does he end up at South Dakota State? He's from Britain, South Dakota.
That right there.
A town of 1,200 people. I'm curious to see how this guy plays out, but everything I've read about him, he's either going to be the first or second tight end taken, and the Saints are probably going to be in the market for a tight end. I don't know if they'd use a first-round pick on him, but I think the Saints, of all years, are in the luxury position of just taking they've got enough needs, but without any real dire needs, that they can just take the best player available. And I know that that's kind of a cliche now, but I think it really does play into their hands this year where they're drafting at the end of the first round. If one of these players that they've got graded in the top 10 or 15 drops all the way down to 27, I think they're going to take him as long as it's not a running back or I don't know, what's the other position where they're deep at? They're deep at running back. I don't think they'd take a running back at 27, but
linebacker maybe. I could see them not taking a linebacker. I think they're pretty solid there.
Safety
if they bring
maybe.
Yeah, I could see them taking a safety because I think Kenny's gone. I think he's going to cost too much for them to keep, especially when you've got Marcus Williams and Von Bell both playing well. I could see a safety being on the board. I could see another cornerback. So you got a lot of young guys. I can see them going defensive line even.
Edge rusher.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Okafor had a good year, but I could see them, maybe trying to shore up, get some depth, because you saw how that seemed to be where the injury bug hit him the hardest was the defensive line. I could see Cineo maybe going to get a big check somewhere, so I could see them maybe going to get a nice offensive lineman that could play multiple spots. Definitely a tight end. I honestly could see them going after another receiver. Willie's a free agent. Coleman seems to have found a role. Ted Ginn's getting up there in age. I could see them maybe going after a young receiver, maybe a project somewhere in the late round, somebody they think can go out there and develop down the road.
The guy that I want Saints fans to look up, we'll talk about him tomorrow when Josh comes on, Marcus Davenport. Remember that name, 6'6", 250, defensive end for Frank Wilson at Texas San Antonio. Started his career as a wide receiver, and I'm not sure who moved him to defensive end, but somewhere along the line they move him over to defensive end. He is blown up. He was the SWAC, or not the SWAC. I'm not sure what conference are they in. What's Texas San Antonio?
They are the
Southland?
Conference USA.
Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. He had 17.5 sacks this year, and he is now being looked at as a first-round draft pick and almost slotted down near the bottom of the first round. I think he's going to go higher because I think people are going to fall in love with this kid when they look at his measurables. He's going to test off the charts at the combine. But that's the kind of kid, man, you put him opposite Cam Jordan on the defensive line with that kind of wingspan, and he's only going to continue to get better. I think that's an intriguing selection that somebody's going to go for, maybe mid-first round, a guy that, probably has his best football ahead of him. And maybe we'll get Frank Wilson on the program soon to talk about Marcus Davenport because he is one of the more intriguing prospects in this draft. So we'll see. Well, I think defensive end is, in my opinion, the top need for the team, but who knows what they do in free agency. They may go out and try and find a guy that can plug a hole. Maybe they get Alex Okafor back.
Yeah, and I think he was having – that was one of the more, heartbreaking injuries because he was having the kind of year that they had hoped when they signed him. He was having the kind of year that was going to get him a nice contract somewhere. So I think, if anything, this injury does maybe make it more likely because he's probably more affordable for him now.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, it didn't help the Saints at the time, but it might help them get him signed back. And there's the caveat there that if Kenny Vaccaro doesn't come back, I mean, those guys are best friends. And that was part of the lure with him signing here. They played together at Texas. We don't know what Kenny Vaccaro's future holds. I think Kenny Vaccaro is going to get paid somewhere.
Yeah, I think he had too good of a season before he was getting hurt. Even when he was playing hurt, he was playing well. And, he does so many things well that you can afford those coverage busts every now and then because he'll get you one back. So I think you've got Marcus Williams who, save for that one play, had a really great season.
That was one big play, though.
It was.
I'm kidding.
I
He had a monster rookie year.
And I think that's one of the things that kind of went unsaid is, Lattimore had a really great season and got all the headlines, but Williams, got that starting job and never wavered. Von Bell had to kind of play his way back into the starting job a little bit, and that was one of those things. But Von, seems to really establish himself as a solid safety. So if you're the Saints, we could spend this money elsewhere.
No doubt about it. All right, thanks, Amos, for sitting in. Pinch hitting for Larry Holder. Great work as always. I want to thank Jimmy Smith and Wesley Fritz for joining the program. Larry Holder for checking in from down in Orlando. I want to thank Clyde Verdun just because I like thanking Clyde. And, of course, David DeCorbier, our excellent producer over at iHeart. And, look, if you missed the program, you can always check out the podcast on iHeartRadio, the Sports 1280 website, also at iTunes and SoundCloud. And we'll have the replays on there. And tomorrow we'll be back in the saddle here at Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Snapchat.
Thanks, Dave.
See you tomorrow.
All right, buddy.
Later. Yep.
Outside the app to places like Facebook and Twitter, initially users will only be able to share